In this tutorial, we're going to talk about the gradient tool. To get to the gradient tool, we click on the letter G on our keyboard. And what the gradient tool does, it allows us to create a gradient of colors, two or as many colors as we want, onto our document. Now, the existing colors that we see right here is a gradient of blue to white. If we click on that, this panel opens, which is the gradient editor, and it shows us some default colors that we can choose, or we can create our own gradient. So let's say we want to create a gradient of red that goes towards yellow. What we need to do is just hover over this little triangle here on the left side, click on that, and when we do, this color option here becomes highlighted, and then we can click on the color itself, which is currently blue, and then the color picker opens. So here I can choose my red. Let me go ahead and do that, and then hit OK. The next thing I need to do, if I want a gradient of red to yellow, I need to change this white to yellow. So I'll go ahead and click on that, on the little triangle at the right bottom, and then go to the color and choose my yellow from here. And then I have the gradient from red to yellow. And then let's say OK. And what we can do next is I happen to have this image of these purple flowers. I can create a new layer over that image and then apply my gradient just by clicking once and then dragging out in any direction you want, and then the gradient is applied. Now the direction that I used is from top to bottom. You can use a diagonal, for example. So if you click on the bottom left and then towards the top right, you'll get a gradient in that direction and so forth. So you can use any direction you want. Now if you look at these little icons at the top, these are also other options that allow you to create different kinds of gradients. The one that we're on now is the linear gradient, but we can choose a radial gradient. Let me go ahead and click on that, and then click once and drag, and you will see that there's, a circle of red, around it is a circle of orange, and then around it is a circle of yellow. So the gradient is a radial gradient. Now the reason why you don't really see it condensed is because I made a very long line between the beginning of my click and then when I released. Let me show you if I make a shorter line. So if I click here and then drag out up until here and not all the way down to the end of the document and then release, you will see a smaller circle. So the size of the line that you draw on your document will determine the shape of your gradient. Okay. The other type is the angle gradient. Again, we can try that. It creates like an angle shape that goes, from red towards yellow. This one is the reflected gradient. It, creates this parallel visual of yellow towards red and then red towards yellow. And then this is the diamond one. So if you click and drag, it's going to create a diamond shape. The one that I use most often is the linear gradient, but again, it depends on the situation. And then we can do all sorts of beautiful things with gradients. Obviously, this is just to show you how to make a gradient, but later on, when we cover blending modes, we can actually learn how to blend a gradient with the layer underneath. So that's really exciting when we get to that stage. I want to show you one other thing here though, that we can also make a gradient from a color to transparency. So I happen to have this option, for example, where we have blue going towards transparent. Let me change this blue to black and show you what happens. So I have a black going towards transparent, and then I'll hit OK. And on my empty layer, I will click once at the bottom and then drag up. Okay, this is not the option that I wanted. I want the linear gradient. So I unchecked the diamond gradient and I went to the linear gradient. And let me do that one more time. Okay, so you see what happens. Sometimes, actually very often, you do need to do something like this. Maybe you have an image that is somewhat dull in one corner. You need to apply a darker color, but then you don't want to cover all your image with color. You can use a color towards transparent gradient as this example. If I drag my line a bit more, you will see that the black extends a bit more towards transparent. So this option is really powerful, and obviously you can choose a different color from black. I'm just showing you black since I use it often. Next tool we're going to talk about is the smudge tool, which is right under the gradient tool. And before working with the smudge tool, let's unhide the image of this hummingbird. I already went ahead and gave my layers names. So hummingbird and flowers. The idea is that the hummingbird comes from a different picture, and I cropped the bird and I placed it over this existing image of these purple flowers. So basically we're pretending this whole thing is one moment in real time. So that's what we can do with Photoshop, right? So the thing with this image is that if I zoom in and look at the feathers, the edges of the wings, we see that they are jaggedy. And it's not natural because people seeing this image will not believe that it's a real image because some of its aspects are not working. For example, the wings. So what we can do is use the smudge tool. I think the main problem is this jaggediness of the feathers. What I can do is just take the smudge tool, and then depending on the strength that I use and the brush size, change this jaggedy aspect into a smudged ending for each of these feathers. So first of all, let me choose a smaller brush, like just click on the left bracket, and remember that you have these files so you can work along with me. And then just click somewhere like here and then drag out. You see? Click and drag out. So we're basically changing this unnatural jaggedy look to a natural smudged, feathered, blurry look, which is what we expect feathers to look like. So, and then if we zoom out, it looks much nicer. Now we can go even further. We can apply some blur to all this section. So if you click and hold the smudge tool, it takes you to the blur tool, and we can zoom in. Oops. And depending on the size of your brush again and the strength, you can apply a blur. So 100% is a bit too much, but I will see the effect that it gives me. So let me go ahead and try. I'm going to apply the blur right now, just over the whole. Okay, so I think it's a bit too much because it blurred the wing for me quite a lot. Maybe 50% is better. Okay, so now we applied the smudge tool on the edges of the feathers and then some blur on the whole wing. And now it looks much more integrated with the blue sky behind it. Finally, if you click and hold the blur tool or the smudge tool, you get to this third option, which is the sharpen tool. And it actually does the opposite of the blur tool. If you have something that is blurry, it sharpens the edges for you. So just specify the strength that you need and choose the size of the brush that you want. And then just go ahead and apply the sharpen tool as if you would apply a brush on a surface of a canvas or on your document. So in this tutorial, we covered the gradient tool and then the blur, the smudge, and the sharpen tools.